Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jesse, and in today's reading vlog, I'm going to be reading your Autobuy authors. These are authors where the second they release a book, it's yours. You see their name, you buy it. I went over on my community tab here on YouTube, asked you guys to submit your Autobuy authors. Y'all came through with tons and tons and tons of author names. Some authors that I'm familiar with, some authors that I've never heard of, some authors that I avoid like the plague. I wrote down all their names on slips of paper, threw them in this super cute Baymax mug. Are you satisfied with your care? I'll be picking out 3 authors at random and reading a book by each of them. Let's pick out our first author. Let's shake her up, mix her up a little bit, and choose a piece of paper. I almost can't get my hand out of it. This one. Who are you? Ooh, I'm actually excited about this. T. Kingfisher. I'll show you guys my terrible handwriting. There we go, T. Kingfisher. I've actually been really wanting to read a book by this author. I feel like this year in particular, I've seen their name be thrown around quite a lot. I've heard a lot of great things about their books, and I fortunately got sent one of their books this summer. That book being A Sorceress Comes to Call. Truthfully, this is not the one that interests me the most from this author, but because it's the one that I own, I'm just gonna go ahead and go with it. They have a novella duology, I believe, that I am really interested in. The Sworn Soldier series. I'm not sure if it's gonna be a duology or if there's going to be more books in the series, but I see these books at the library all the time and I'm always tempted to pick them up, but for whatever reason, I just never do. So I think I will just go ahead and read A Sorceress Comes to Call for this video. This is actually a retelling of The Goose Girl. In this book, we are following Cordelia, and her mother is incredibly strict. She's also an evil sorceress, so I think the two go hand in hand. Basically, Cordelia is not allowed to leave the house. She's not allowed to have any friends whatsoever, and just is basically secluded from the outside world. When her mother decides that her and Cordelia are going to move into this manor, Cordelia knows that the people within the manor are the mother's next victims, but she also just can't help but love living at this manor. She finally has contact with people, and now Cordelia is faced with having to kind of take on her mother because she wants to protect these people that she's met and this home that she sort of created at this manor. But obviously going up against her evil sorceress mother is not going to be an easy feat. I love a dark fairy tale vibe. I feel like this is going to mix bits of horror and fantasy, and I'm looking forward to unraveling this story and seeing what it's all about. I will keep you guys updated. Without further ado, let's get to reading. My neighbor's dogs love to start barking when I start filming. It's their favorite thing to do. It's my least favorite thing that they do. It's reading update time. I have made some progress in A Sorceress Comes to Call. I am on chapter 16, page 138, and so far, I'm so impressed by this book. I know that this isn't even T. Kingfisher's most known book, most notable book, most popular book, but I'm sold already. I'm so buckled in and ready to read more from this author. So far, it feels like this book has stayed incredibly true to the description itself. So it's nice that it's actually delivering on the concept that it's promised from the start. And it's not only delivering, it's also executing. It's doing a really great job with this story, in my opinion. I feel like there's just so many facets to it that I'm really enjoying. In terms of execution, it's nailing it. It took the nail and pow, pow, pow. That's exactly what it did. The relationship between Cordelia and her mother, Evangeline, is so dark and twisted and sick. Her mom has the ability to manipulate and control, and she utilizes it often. Evangeline is the villain of the story, and while it is believable that she is this evil, big, bad, dark, bad guy, that was a great way to describe her as a villain. But I feel like her entire story arc is just evil, 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 and I just want more background on her. I want to explore who she is as a person, and not only just seeing this evil side of her or just seeing the evil front that she has, because I know that there's got to be more to her character. I feel like I just want her to be fleshed out a little bit more. I'm not looking to empathize or feel some kind of way for her, because I feel like her actions are not excusable in my opinion, but I do want to understand the big bad, you know? The sort of unease that that character in particular brings with her when she steps on the page is written so well. She has this sort of fearful presence that just adds a layer of discomfort and intensity when she comes onto the page. My absolute favorite part of this book so far, I think, is the side characters. There's quite a few side characters. We have a pretty big crew of characters, and I love each and every one of them. I feel like they are just adding so much personality, and honestly, the stream of light that this book needs, because obviously without them, it would just be really sad and really bleak, but they are bringing some nice personality and good vibes, because I feel like if it was just Cordelia and Evangeline, that it would just be really dark and really sad. So I'm glad to have some balance happening in this book. Those are all my feelings so far. I'm excited to get back into this, crack back into it, and keep reading on. I can definitely tell why this would be an auto-buy author for some people. I'll talk a little bit more about it when I finish the book, but I just feel like I am even like, I want to read more by this author immediately. Again, I know that this isn't like the book that they're most known for, but it is nice that I'm feeling the pull to read more books by them while reading this one. I'm getting ready to go on a walk at the park, which I'm so excited about. It's back to walking season. This whole summer, I was not able to like really get out and go walk. I mean, I could have, but I didn't want to like die of heat exhaustion because it's been such a hot summer, but I'm looking forward to the cool fall time vibes, even though fall time brings on seasonal depression for me. It's fine. It's fine. I just have to distract myself with things like reading and Halloween and shows. Speaking of shows, I randomly started watching the show Murder, She Wrote. I was on Amazon buying a few things and it was just like recommended, like the DVD set was recommended to me and I was like, huh, I should watch that. I didn't buy the DVD set because it's streaming on Peacock, so I've just been watching it on Peacock, but it is so delightful. I am only an episode in, so like I haven't gotten too far into the series. It's also like 12 seasons, so the likelihood of me following through with the entirety of the series, pretty low, pretty slim. I doubt it's gonna happen, but I really enjoyed the first episode. It's so delightful and comforting and cozy and warm, but also like has like little moments of intensity. Not necessarily intensity, but like there's nice mystery, there's murder, and I'm excited to get deeper into it. But let me know down below in the comments if you guys have watched Murder, She Wrote. I feel like it's been a second since I've watched kind of an older show, and so I'm just really enjoying it. I'm having a good time with it. Let's go for a walk and get back to reading. I will update you guys when I'm done with A Sorceress Comes to Call. Reading update time. I finished A Sorceress Comes to Call and it was top tier. I'm so excited about it. I feel like this book just did so many things right. It was incredibly well paced. Everything just felt so tight and intentional, and I never felt like the story wasn't moving forward. I felt like every little element of the story was pushing it forward, was pushing us towards different things that came into play, different plot points. I love and respect when pacing is done well because there are so many authors that just don't get it right, like spending too much time on unnecessary things, dragging out details that do not need to be dragged out. With this book, we were pretty much always getting enough to push us forward, and I so loved that about it. In terms of story beats, A+. It's also like a twisty journey as well. Well, I don't know if like you're super familiar with the Goose Girl that you'll feel like it's super twisty. I'm not super familiar with the Goose Girl, so to me, I found things to be like unexpected, and there were things that surprised me throughout the story. But if you're like super familiar with the Goose Girl, you might feel differently. I don't know though, you Goose Girl stans will have to read this book and let me know. Report back, please. I think the tension is done really well too. There's this feeling of instability running through the book. You just never know when things are going to fall apart and just end up in this dark, chaotic place, or if everything is going to turn out just fine. Overall, I devoured this and I enjoyed it so much. I loved the writing style. I loved the pacing. I loved the characters. Oh my god, the characters! Like, I love Cordelia, but honestly, I think that the side characters kind of outshined our main character, which I love. I love that. I ended up landing on a 4-star rating, a 4 out of 5 stars. Again, my only gripe with this book is that I just wanted a little bit more from our villain. Not that I wanted to like feel connected to her, but I just wanted to know more about her, and I just felt like we didn't really go that deep with her. At the end of the day, it's fine. Again, it's like such a small little gripe, but enough for me to feel that impact. I can definitely see the appeal of this author. I get why so many people commented this on that post and were like, T. Kingfisher is my auto-buy author. I get it now. I get the hype, and I'm looking forward to to exploring more of their work. Let me know down below in the comments where you think I should go from here. Do you think I should go and read one of their more notable books, or should I go and read one that's a little bit more underhyped? Let me know in the comments down below. But I will say, I definitely recommend checking this one out. I really enjoyed it, had a good time with it, and I feel like a lot of other people will too. Now let's go and pick out the next author for this video and find out my next read. Somewhere in between me coming from the living room to this room, I cut my finger on something, but I don't know what I cut it on, so I'm gonna have to bandage up here in a second. Baymax, I am in need of some care. Also, Baymax, please give me an author that I feel okay about. It doesn't have to be an author I love. It can be a new to me author. Just please don't give me an author that I hate or that I don't want to read. Please. Manifestation, manifestation, manifestation. Shake, shake, shake. Swirl, 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 swirl. Ow. Whoa, I choose you. You're the chosen one. Rick Riordan fell out, so that sucks. Could have had Rick Riordan. Let's see what we got here. Alix E. Harrow. Another zoom in on my horrible handwriting. I have a couple things by Alix E. Harrow. Okay, I have this duology, which I'm definitely interested in reading. It's like a fairy tale retelling situation. I believe a Sleeping Beauty fairy tale retelling. And then I also have the book The Once and Future Witches. This one does sound good. It takes place in the 1800s and it follows witches. The Once and Future Witches is a powerful and moving tale of sisterhood and suffrage in New Salem. So like that does intrigue me, but I feel like I kind of want to have like a back-to-back reading situation today and just like bang out 2 novellas. It's also been a second since I've read a novella, so I'm gonna choose the novellas. They're calling to me. I have to give in. So this duology or series, I'm not sure if it's a duology or a series. It's called the Fractured Fable series. In book 1, it's a bit of a Sleeping Beauty retelling of sorts. We are following our main character Zinnia, and she is about to turn 21, and it will be her last birthday ever. After an accident, it left her with this rare condition that other people have had, and none of them have lived past their 21st birthday. Zinnia is about to turn 21, so it's going to be her last birthday celebration. Her bestie wants to go all out for Zinnia's birthday, and so she decides to do this sort of like Sleeping Beauty theme, because soon Zinnia's going to be a Sleeping Beauty. That sounds so morbid. Anyway, some sort of kerfuffle ends up happening and somehow flings herself into a fairy tale of sorts. Sounds natural, sounds like it could definitely happen in the real world. I'm gonna bang out these novellas today. I kind of want to get like a hoodie on and be like extra cozy. So let's change it up, shall we? Wow, I'm so magic. Let's get to reading. Reading update time. I finished a Splendor... Reading update time. I finished a Spindle Splintered, and I'm honestly leaving this book feeling rather meh about it. It did have a lot going on for it being so short. We're at a whopping 119 pages and it was jam-packed with so many things, which was like a double-edged sword for me because on one hand, I was really enjoying it. It felt really fast-paced. Everything was being thrown at me left and right, left and right, left and right. And then on the other hand, on the other edge of that sword, I felt like there was too much going on. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes I prefer a bit of a clear focus. Sometimes it's okay to reel it back and not open the floodgates. I was thrown aback by all the pop culture references in this book, which I am not a pop culture reference hater. I know some of you guys get the ick when it comes to pop culture references. I am not one of you. I'm typically okay with it, but I feel like for this, I wanted us to kind of ditch the real world and be in the fantasy world, be in the fairy tale world. I feel like every time something that was brought up that was from the real world, I was just like instantly taken out of the book. It made sense why all the pop culture references were like pop, lock, and drop in it, because like obviously our main character Zinnia is from the real world. It's kind of tying us back to the real world, reminding us that she's a real world girly in a not so real world setting. It is an adult novel, but it reads more young adult to me. And I know that our main character is still technically baby. She's turning 21, but she just read so much younger to me, so much more immature than her actual age. I will say that the writing style outside of like the characterization was done so well. It's sort of a writing style that feels like self-aware at times, and I loved that so much. Calling itself out, bringing attention to tropes. I feel like I'm landing on a 2.5 star rating, but it feels closer to like a 3-star rating, so like somewhere in between there. I'm not gonna get all technical and complicated and be like 2.6842. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that today. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to book 2 because these books are so short and bite-sized. I got through this one so fast, and this one also feels really slim. I'm not sure how many pages it is. It does feel a little bit thicker. Yeah, this one is 128 pages, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started on it and try to finish it today. Without further ado, let's get to reading. Reading update time. I finished A Mirror Mended, and honestly, I feel like this one is better than the first one, which I was not expecting. I feel like oftentimes when I read a sequel, I much prefer the first book over the second book. Very rarely do I find myself in a position where the second book feels better than the first book. So I'm happy to have landed in this lane. I'm glad to have landed in this lane. I don't know what I was trying to say, but glappy might just be my new favorite word. I'm glad and happy at the same time. This one falls into the Snow White realm, and we have a heavy focus on the Evil Queen. And we get a fun take on the Evil Queen, honestly, and a very eye-opening take as well. We see this misunderstood view of her, and Zinnia is trying to be open-minded in approaching her and how she approaches her. And it feels like Alix E. Harrow is bringing commentary on villains, specifically female villains, and how they're often painted a specific way. Like, why are female villains typically older, wrinkly, and old, rotten women? And how on the flip side, like, the heroines are oftentimes like described as like young, pretty, angelic beings. And I just like loved the conversation that it brought to the table in discussing villains and how they're portrayed in books and in media and whatnot. This one had more humor in it. I need to change positions. I am uncomfortable. That's so much better. My arms were dying, literally dying. This one had more humor in it than the first one did, and that lightheartedness added a lot to the story. I will say this one also had a lot going on, and I was like, sis, sister. I would understand if the page count was upped, but we are messing with 128 pages. I think I would have been more understanding if it was a novel, but we are dealing with a novella here. Say it with me now. Less is more. I'm landing on a 4 out of 5 stars with this book. Quite the difference from the first book to the second book. I give the first one 2.5 out of 5 stars, leaning more on the 3-star side of things, and I gave this a 4. I was very surprised by this book. Now, in terms of Alix E. Harrow being an Autobuy author, I am still feeling a little bit conflicted because I feel like I just have like up and down experiences with her books. Like, I really loved The 6 Deaths of the Saint. Again, that's like my favorite. That book, or that novella, it's not even really a novella, it's like a very short story. Like, I think it's under 40 pages probably. It had a lasting impact on me. Like, it is so good. It's a story that I think about often. And then came The Starling House, which was the next book that I read by this author, and I just felt okay about it. It just was not that impactful for me. It was not something that like really stood out to me. I felt like there were really good ideas, but they weren't expanded on well enough, and I also just like didn't really vibe with the characters all that much. So Starling House was a disappointment for me. And then we have a similar situation here where I felt kind of down about A Spindle Splintered, but then I felt up about A Mirror Mended. So for me, I don't know that Alix E. Harrow is an Autobuy author, but she is an author that I'm willing to give second chance after second chance and try again. So I do understand why this author works for a lot of people though. Let's go pick out our next and final author for this video. Okay, last one, Baymax. Give me something good. We've got Adrienne Young. Okay, interesting. I read a book by Adrienne Young quite a while ago called Sky in the Deep, and that book just didn't really work for me. I've always wanted to give this author a second chance, and one of their books was a book of the month pick, and I ended up picking it. That book being Spells for Forgetting. I need to get the cover. Let me show you guys what I have to go through in trying to find the cover for each book. I have to crack into one of these tubs and hope that I find the cover, but honestly, I did this to myself. I have nobody else to blame but myself. I really need to take the time soon to put these book covers back on their books. There we go. We have just the book. Spells for Forgetting. This is a murder mystery story that takes place on a magical island, which sounds really amazing to me. We're following our main character, Emery, who lost one of her best friends to an alleged murder, and the alleged murderer, is Emery's boyfriend. August ended up leaving the island right after the murder occurred. He was not able to be convicted as the murderer because there just wasn't enough evidence to go off of. It's quite a few years later since the murder has happened, and now August is returning to the island, and I believe we are delving deep into this murder and trying to figure out what happened. And I believe that magic comes into play in some kind of way, which really excites me. I love the sound of that. And I am looking forward to giving this author a second chance because I feel like I didn't get off on the best foot with their last book that I read. So I'll be interested in seeing how I end up feeling about this book. Without further ado, let's get to reading. Reading update time from the kitchen. I promise there's a reason we're in the kitchen. But first, let's talk about Spells for Forgetting. I have made it to chapter 40, page 232, and honestly, I am having mixed feelings so far, which makes me so sad because the beginning was really promising. I loved the beginning portion. The way it was written, Ho 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 ho, chef's kiss. So I'm very sad to be finding myself in a rather negative place with this book. But first, let's talk about some positives. Let's override the negativity a little bit, not be a hater right off the bat. Not that I'm gonna be a hater, but like I do have some critiques, some criticisms. So far, the vibes of the book are immaculate. I'm loving the atmosphere. I'm loving the writing style. Oh my god, the writing style. I feel like that's the one thing that's like keeping me in this book, is that I'm like really enjoying the way she's writing this story. It just has like this warm feeling to it, almost like a cozy mystery, but a cozy mystery that doesn't have very interesting plot points. The characters are very distinct and very well thought out. We get to see several perspectives in this book, which is also a part of my criticisms, but we'll get to that. And I am, for the most part, enjoying the mystery, but my main problem comes from the slowness. We are entering the hater section of talking about this book. The book is incredibly slow moving. I'm talking slow. I'm talking, did somebody sit on the remote and accidentally put this book in slow motion? That's what I need to know, because that's what it feels like. We are moving in slow motion. It's not only in terms of pacing, though this does tie into the pacing, but like the things that pop up throughout this book just get dragged on and on and on. It feels like the entire story so far is just like, did August do it? Did August kill her? He probably did it. There's just no way he could have done it. He totally did it. But did he? It's told through the present and the past, so we are bouncing back and forth. And it's sort of using that in a way to allow you to get to know the friend group and understand them, and also sort of build intrigue, I think. And I think that going back and forth with the past and the present can sometimes work really well, but I feel like in this instance, it's not really working for me, because I just think it's taking way too much time to build that intrigue, and I feel like there were other ways to go about it. Again, we are seeing through the eyes of several different perspectives, though we do definitely have our main perspectives, our main characters, that is Emery and August. They're the two that we are following the most, but every now and then it will bring in a different perspective to kind of showcase a different side to things. And I also feel like it's utilized in a way to like throw suspicion off of people or throw suspicion onto different people, maybe sort of throw off the scent of some people. And I think that that's okay, but I just feel like a lot of the things that are going down in this book are just boring. Like, I am finding myself in a bored place. Also, where is the magic? I thought that I was promised magic at the beginning of the story. Like, that's what it kind of established at the beginning. It like planted the seeds for this to be like a magical, fantastical story, like a very subtle magical story. And like, sure, I feel like magic could come into play here in the second half of the book. I feel like there's definitely room for it, but I thought that the setup made it feel like this was going to like delve deep into like a magical island situation, and it's just not. So that threw me off completely. Maybe that was like me going in with specific expectations though, but like I thought that there was going to be magic involved. I feel bad because I don't know if this is like the next step that I should have taken in reading Adrienne Young. Like maybe I should have read one of her more popular books like Fables, but I just picked this one up because it's the one that I had, and it also did intrigue me. Like when I read the description, I was like, that sounds really interesting. And I'm hoping that maybe the second half of the book will like throw me into a different place with this book, but I just have my doubts. I probably should DNF this book, but I feel like I'm enjoying the writing style enough to not want to DNF it. And also, like, I've had so many experiences lately where I read the first chunk of the book and I wasn't really enjoying it, and then I read the second half and it like changed my perspective on the book. So I feel like I'm falling back into a place where I'm having a hard time DNFing books. I'm gonna be so honest with you guys. At the beginning of the year, I was like, I'm doing so great DNFing books, and now look where I'm at. Because I had a few experiences where I held on to a book, kept reading, and it got better in the second half. So I'm a mess. Anyway, the reason we're in the kitchen. Two things. First thing is this. Oreo Coca-Cola. I found this at Target yesterday and I just had to pick it up and try it. We gotta do a taste test. It's going down because I am so intrigued. Do we think it actually tastes like an Oreo? Let's find out. Cheers down the hatch. Huh? How does that taste like an Oreo? I'm confused. Okay, it mostly tastes like a vanilla Coca-Cola, but as you keep reading it, as you keep drinking it, it tastes a little bit chocolatey, and actually the aftertaste tastes like Oreo. I'm so confused. My mind is not computing. And then there's also the fact that like it also tastes like Coca-Cola. I'm confused. I'm so confused. My brain can't handle this. I like it. I'm into it. It's so weird though, like I feel like I'm drinking an Oreo. I also got some book mail that I am very excited to open up. For the past few years, Fairy Loot have done these really dope editions of the Heartstopper series, and I believe this is the fourth book in the series. Crunch. I feel like the cover's not in the best condition, but it is still really pretty and it's shiny. And I feel like they do stuff on the actual hardback. Oh, I love that. I'm obsessed with that. Nick and Charlie in the Rain. I also really love the end papers. Those are so pretty. I've fallen pretty behind on keeping up with this series and also the Netflix series. Like, I haven't watched season 2 at all. I desperately need to get around to it because season 3 comes out very soon. So that needs to happen. ASAP. Alright, it's time to get back to reading. Let's delve into this and see if I change my opinion with the second half of the book. Let's get to reading. It is never fun for me when I finish a book and I didn't like it and then I have to come back on here and tell you that I didn't like it, but that's where I landed with Spells for Forgetting, which makes me really sad. I didn't want to not like it. I really wanted to love it, and I felt like it had a lot of promising things that it brought up in the first little bit of it, specifically the magic. Like, I really thought it was going to go into a much more magical place with the seeds that were planted in the beginning. And sure, magic does eventually come back into play, but it takes a long time to get there, and I don't know how I feel about the execution of it. I felt really unsatisfied with the ending overall. I was hoping that maybe I would be shocked or surprised or find myself spiraling with what the ending brought to the table. I honestly thought it might pull like a We Were Liars situation, but it didn't, and I just overall felt really unsatisfied. And I also just ended up feeling deceived by this book. Like, again, magic does come into play, but when it comes into play, it's just a little too late for me, and I just wanted more of that, because in the beginning when we like hear the whispers of the magic on the island, that was what like really held my attention, and I was like, that sounds so amazing. It's written in such an enchanting way, and I felt like had it delved deeper into that earlier on, I probably would have really loved this book. I probably would not be giving this book such a low rating, but that's where I am landing. I am giving this book a 2 out of 5 stars. In terms of like auto-buy, obviously Adrienne Young is not joining my list of auto-buy authors. I feel like after having a bad experience with one of her other books, Sky in the Deep, and now this one, I just don't know that this author is really going to be one for me personally. I feel like I would borrow one of their books from the library. I don't think that they would fall into like an auto-borrow author for me, but I definitely would be willing to check out more by this author because I do really like their writing style. That's one thing that I will give to them. It's very enchanting, very atmospheric. In fact, in the first little section of this book, I was like, this atmospheric writing style is reminding me of A River Enchanted. Am I gonna have another A River Enchanted in my hands? I was severely wrong about that. I think I just don't vibe with this author's style of storytelling. Not to say that it's bad, and not to say that there's not room at the table for it, but for my personal preferences when it comes to reading, they just don't deliver what I need. Before we rank the books from best to worst, I went to a comic book store yesterday and picked up some comics, so let's do a little bit of a comic book haul. I got the final issue in Toxic Summer, which I'm so excited about, but also at the same time so sad about. This is a bittersweet situation for me. I just really loved the first 2 issues, and it's one of those situations where I would love for this to be a full-fledged series, but I also at the same time understand why it's not. It almost has like a Scooby-Doo vibe to it that I really love. I'm excited to read this and see how the story comes to a close. Then I got the Autumn Kingdom because autumn is right around the corner, so I felt like I just needed to pick up something that feels very autumny, and this feels very autumny, so that's the reason I picked this one up. I feel like the thing about comics is that they don't really have a description anywhere on the actual comic book, so I just kind of have to like go off of vibes, being like, do I like this art style? Sure. Kind of a risky situation, but I also kind of like that. I like going into these not really knowing what I'm getting. I guess I could like Google the descriptions for these, but I never do that in the store. And then finally I got issues 1 and 2 of Epitaphs from the Abyss. These just felt like really fun horror comics. The art style feels very classic to me, and I'm very excited to get into these. Those are the comics that I got at my local comic book store yesterday. Let me know down below in the comments if you have any like comic book recommendations for me. Now, in terms of my ranking, first place we've got A Sorceress Comes to Call. I'm super excited to read more books by T. Kingfisher. I feel like I want to like run to the library immediately and check out some more of their books and try out more of their books and just see what else that they have to offer, because I just so loved this one. I can definitely see T. Kingfisher becoming an auto-buy author for me in the future. Then I would say A Mirror Splendid comes next. I loved this sequel. I didn't really love the first book all that much, but this one came through and just like fully grabbed my attention, and I felt like it did so many great things, brought in some interesting characters, and also I loved the commentary that it brought in on fairy tales. Specifically the commentary it brought in on like evil women characters. Then I would say A Spindle Splintered. I had a fun time with this one. It was short, fun, and easy, but it also just like jam-packed way too much in it, and I just felt a little bit overwhelmed and also a little underwhelmed in terms of like execution because there were so many things that were brought up throughout the story. I felt like we didn't have enough time to explore all these different things that were brought into the story. I feel like for Alix E, Harrow, they have not reached Autobuy author status for me because I just feel like they've had several misses that I can't justify being like, I'm gonna buy every single book that they come out with. But if they have one that comes out that I'm interested in, I will definitely see about checking it out from the library or something like that. And then finally we've got Spells for Forgetting. You guys obviously know how I ended up feeling about this book. I was just underwhelmed by its slowness, and I did not feel like it really delivered when it came to the magic, and the ending was just not worth it for me. I'm very sad, very devastated by this one, and yeah, I don't see Adrienne Young becoming an Autobuy author for me, but I would be willing to give them another chance. So if you have a recommendation for me when it comes to Adrienne Young, let me know down below in the comments. And with that, we have come to a close with this reading vlog. I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments. Let me know if you have read any of these books, and if you have not read any of these books, then let me know down below in the comments who your Autobuy authors are. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon, and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye.